Hey everyone, this is Mar, and once again, this is my opinion, coming at you with another episode of First Impressions, the video series where I give my thoughts on things that I've watched for the first time, whether it be episodes of TV shows, movies, an occasional book, but usually those are in their own separate category. Today, it is a TV show. It is the latest entry of NXT TakeOver, live from New Orleans. Dun 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 dun. Okay, that's far. I'm gonna go with that little gag. Now, before I get into this, I will say I have not been keeping up with NXT through direct watching as much as I have been lately, which I want to slap myself in the face for that. But I have been keeping up with what's been going on through podcasts. It's just I gotta really start watching it, which I'm gonna try to start with this upcoming week's action, mainly because if everything goes as planned, in November I will be seeing NXT LA. I already got my ticket, so let's just hopefully make sure I get the time off and all that. Anyway, thankfully these events always have good video packages before the matches, so I get caught up. Some of the stuff you don't really need to have seen everything to understand why everything's at stake and important. Now, we open up with a performance by a band. I don't know the band specifically, and I did not look it up. I know Lazy Ass Artist. But it is, from what I'm seeing, one of the bands that did one of the songs for the event, and they did a pretty good opening performance, especially since it's punctuated with the opening video package. And after this, we get our opening match, which this is the epitome of an opening match. It is the ladder match to determine the first ever NXT North American champion. Now, this is the second time that WWE has had a North American title. The last one was the predecessor of the Intercontinental title, which was fictionally combined with a fictional South American title. And people that held that title, even though it was short-lived, include Ted DiBiase and, of course, Bada Bo, the baddest and best Intercontinental Champion. Oh, fuck you. Now, this ladder match did its job, got the crowd pumped up for the event proper and perfect way to begin the pay-per-view. Lars Sullivan dominated portions of the match. Like, there was a moment where he threw the ladder at everyone. I'm watching him go, wow. That's a way to dominate. Lars, once he gets to the main roster, hopefully they treat him well. I mean, it'd be interesting to see him go against Braun Strowman in a Royal Rumble match. Like two big bulls going at one another. I don't think they'd probably do well in a singles match against one another, but the occasional meetup would be interesting just to see strength versus strength. But if this guy's dominant, he could at least be a upper mid-card dominant monster heel if he's treated right. Another part, Lars had a little brawl with Killian Dane, and as the announcer said, it's like King Kong versus Godzilla. That was a good little brawl, really showed off Lars' power there. Velveteen Dream had a great spot during the match. At one point, he did an elbow drop from the top of the ladder, which I'm like, ooh, that's cool. Macho Man will be proud. And another moment was where he did a Death Valley Driver to Ricochet, which, by the way, this is Ricochet's first match, while balanced on a ladder. What happened is that there was one ladder, and then another ladder was balanced between that ladder and the ring post. And that's what the Death Valley Driver is done from. When I watch it, I'm like, ooh, that's gonna hurt. That's a cool spot. Ladder matches are known for all their spots. So, see Dream do a couple like that, that's amazing. And there's a point in the match where a couple of the ladders start snapping. It's like, well, if they keep this up, they're gonna have to go to the hardware store and get a couple more ladders. Hopefully, they don't break all of them. In the end, after a hard-fought match, Adam Cole wins, becoming the first ever North American champion. It was a hard-fought match. Like I said, this match served its purpose, got the crowd pumped up, and got everyone going, yeah, we're going to see a good old-fashioned NXT event. Next, we saw the NXT Women's Championship defended as Ember Moon defended against Shayna Baszler. And this, for what it was a good little match. Nice little segue from the ladder match, went back to more technically based wrestling, and in the end, Shayna got the submission victory, becoming the new women's champion. Now, this is one of those matches where you really need to know the story loosely to understand what's going on, and I think the video package did a good enough job summarizing it. I know they've had a match before that Ember won, which I know surprised a lot of people, like, really? You're not going to have Shayna win? But building to the NXT event before WrestleMania weekend, I can see the wisdom in letting Moon retain until now. The announcers mentioned that Ronda Rousey was at ringside, but I don't remember seeing any shots of her. Maybe it was when I was looking at something else real quick, or maybe they were just quick cut, or maybe it was during the ring entrance and when I was looking away, but I don't remember seeing her, so it could be one of those things where the ring announcers are just making up something. I just love the way they began this match with Shayna knocking Ember down with a punch, like get that MMA thing in. And at one point, Shayna did do that thing with the hand where she steps on the hand and then does that weird twist thing to injure it. But Ember soon returned the favor, and I just love how they built this up with the audience, like, ooh, this is gonna be good. And then Shayna's like looking at her like, no, 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 no. Then like, ooh, she did it. Ember Moon got a powerbomb near fall at one point in the match, which not long after this, Shayna Baszler got her armbar in, but it had to be modified due to her arm, but she still got the submission victory, and she's the new champion. I just wonder how this is going to be built up after this. Ember, we know, is going to get her rematch. Is it going to be on a normal episode of NXT as the main event, or will they wait until the next TakeOver? One other thing to note is that Ember actually got her theme played live before the match, which I thought was an interesting way to introduce her on this edition of TakeOver. And nice to hear her song performed live, because hers is one of the better entrance themes of the newer generation of superstars. You know, hers, Nakamura's. Next up, we got the NXT Tag Title Triple Threat match, and this was a good match to have after the women's title match, so you could see the wisdom of placing that match between the two matches that had a lot of people in them, kind of a segue. I know on the main roster, usually the women's matches were usually put in that death spot, but here in NXT, there's not really a death spot. Especially since every match has a point, and there's no match you're like, yeah, they could really cut that match. Here, nice segue, and we get this excellent tag title. During one portion of the match, the Authors of Pain were being dominant, which, given how their tag team is, makes sense. They're going to dominate. And I was wondering, like, are they going to get the titles back, or is this going to be a red herring? In the end, it was kind of a red herring, but it fit the nature of the match that those two would dominate. At one point, there was an Olympic Slam near fall, which I'm like, okay, that kind of diminishes the fact that it's Angle's finish, but since it's being used by someone that it's not their finish, I guess I can see why. And also it adds to the drama of the match a little bit, but it's one of those things, like, why use a move that someone else's finish as a near spot like that? That's just me. Then again, since Angle wasn't on this show, I guess you kind of get away with it, but still the same company when you look at it. At another point, we had a double submission spot where one wrestler had another in the triangle choke, and then that one who was in the triangle choke had the ankle lock on someone else. It was a nice little moment. It's like, all right, who's going to tap first? But then it got broken up. And in the end, Cole and O'Reilly retained their tag team titles when Roderick Strong turns on his partner. And he joins them. Which that was a nice little moment. Which that was the moment I heard about before I started watching. Because I started watching about an hour or so after the event started. So this match was happening as I started watching. Or had just finished happening. So there was already some spoilers on there. So like, okay, let's see how they do this. I'm like, huh, not bad. Makes me wonder how this story is going to continue on this upcoming episode of NXT. Now, when it comes to the main event match of this particular event, we have the grudge match going on last, which since it's a grudge match that's unsanctioned, I can see the wisdom of putting it in the main event over the NXT title match. But then this comes into the debate of like, shouldn't the title match be main event every time? There are instances where it should and instances where it shouldn't. WrestleMania 18 is an example of when the title should not be the last match on the card. Another WrestleMania, the one where we had the first Undertaker-Shawn Michaels match, is an example of where the title match should not be the last match on the card. Now, some of Punk's pay-per-view defenses are examples of when it should be the last match on the card. Here, having it be the semi-main makes sense. And despite that, this was a pretty good NXT title match. Aleister Black walks out the champion. I knew he was going to end up walking out as the champion, but it's the drama of, like, how is he going to defeat Andrade Cien Almas? Is Zelina Vega really going to put her nose in the match? And she did near the end. I mean, she helped Almas get his foot on the ropes a couple times. She did a lot of interference, but in the end, it was for naught because Aleister Black still walked out the champion. From the beginning, Black really takes it to Almas because he's really going to go at him like he really wants the title, which makes sense considering how his character is, that he's really going to go after Almas, especially considering almost has his equalizer on the outside of the ring. At one point, the ref is distracted, and that's when Vega does her first little bit of interference, and she clocks Black with a Hurricane Rana, which that's one of those things you're like, you know that's dirty, you boo at her, but you're like, that's not going to be how they're going to get a near fall out of it. It got a semi-near fall, but not like how you would expect, but it was good for a nice little spot there. And then later in the match, Black counters a DDT attempt, but then he gets hit by one not long after that, but he kicks out. Now, I'm usually against people kicking out of finishes, unless it means something. This is an instance where it means something, so here, it didn't bug me as much. And then, of course, Black eventually hit Amos with his kick and the victory, and he is the new NXT champion. Vega, right around this time, tried to get involved, but her interference was for naught. She got a good comeuppance, and Black was walking out champion. This is one I really want to see how he's going to sell it on NXT. Like, how is he going to speak to the people now that he's their champion? It's going to be one of those interesting little moments. Then we come to the main event, a match that has been brewing for months on end. We got Gargano versus Ciampa. Former tag team partners going at each other. And former tag team partners colliding are matches that really can have a lot of drama if you build them correctly. The one I like to think of, and the comparison is apt considering they also had a street fight, would be the former Click members, at least on screen at the time, Triple H and Shawn Michaels. That was a blood feud that lasted for years and did not end until they joined to combat Vince McMahon and reformed DX in 06. Now, there's been a lot of other instances where WWE's dropped the ball on breaking up tag teams. It's like, really? Really? Of course, the whole Shawn Michaels, Mario Jannetty one, that one is because of outside things. That's why that one didn't go as well as it could have been. But here, the way that they did this payoff, ooh, excellent. Makes me wonder if this is going to be the full payoff or if they're going to continue down the road after this, or will they actually continue fighting when they get up to the main roster? That could be interesting, especially if it leads to one of them getting a title match and then the other interfering or challenging for the title right away. It's going to depend on how they play their cards right. I like that Ciampa came out with no entrance theme. Added a little interesting thing. And of course you could hear the heckling from the audience more. They were going asshole. They did the Johnny Wrestling chants. There was one other thing I forgot to make a note of, but it really added to it. Later on they chanted "You're a wanker" at him, which I think fit. I really love it when they do chants like that. When Gargano came out, he was really cheered by the audience. They really earned him. They really wanted to see him win. Which, by the way, Gargano did get the victory in the end. Just a little spoiler there. But it was a hard-fought victory. This is one of the longest matches on the card, which, given the brutality of this match, it worked. Now, before I get into discussing the match, if there's one problem I really had with the match was that there were too many high spots that should have been the ending of the match, which I know it's an unsanctioned street brawl match, so I guess it kind of makes sense they'd be doing a lot of spots like that, and the ref's only going to count it when it's in the ring. But it's one of those things like, really, they really went a little bit too far with it at times. And there was a couple points where they were kicking out of finisher moves, and it's like, maybe it went a little bit too far. Maybe it's me starting to look more at the psychology and how far you should push it now that I'm getting a little older, and even though I can enjoy the entertainment of the match, I'll still critique it for that. But I will give them this at least. At least the finish of the match was not something that you look at and go, really, that's the finish? Some people might look at it and go, really, that's the finish? But considering how they built it up right before they did it, I think it worked. Although it does kind of fall a little down, considering when it had followed, which I will get to in due time. From the beginning, Gargano takes it to Ciampa, as we expect he would. I mean, this has been a blood feud building, and if he wins, he gets his job back in NXT, so he really is going to take it to him. Ciampa eventually gets his footing, and the match starts going back and forth a little bit more evenly at that point. Before the "You're a wanker" chant, there is a table spot, but it's not the traditional one. It's not through the announce table, it's off the announce table, which I can't think of the last time we had an off the announce table spot. I think it's been a long time since there's been one. So I thought that was a nice little move. And then not long after that, we had the first high spot, which I'm like, okay, how are they going to follow this up? This seems like it should be something that it's near the end of the match, leads into the finish, or is the finish, but I could kind of see where they put it early on, but I would have placed it later in the match if it was me in the match, but that's just me. Maybe that's just me listening to Jim Cornette and thinking more about psychology, like I said before. And that is, there was a powerbomb spot into the exposed concrete. Ciampa was going to do something to Gargano. Gargano counters and powerbombs him off the apron into the exposed concrete. That's one of those spots you watch and go, ugh, that's gonna hurt in the morning. That's a phrase that's overused, but it's apt in this case. It's like, that's gonna hurt in the morning and over the course of the next 20 years. Just watching that, it's like, ew. It's a good spot, but I just think its placement in the match was a little off. But that could be the only one. All the crutches came into play a couple times in the match. Gargano actually got a hold of him at one point and took him to Ciampa. I was like, oh, there's some just desserts. My favorite part, though, about the powerbomb was that right after it, the crowd started chanting, "You deserve it. You deserve it." That chant can be overused at times, but this is a time where I think it was used perfectly. And that got a big chuckle out of me. Anyone who hears that and does not laugh, it's like, really? How do you not find that funny? Point in the match, the turnbuckle was exposed, and we all know at one point it's going to be used. And near the end of the match, it was used for a snake eyes spot, which is like, all right, there we go, there's the payoff, which I thought was nice. It's one of those things that the longer it's exposed, I'm like, okay, when's it going to be used? When's it going to be used? When's it going to be used? And this is the most blatantly exposed I've seen in one of these turnbuckles in a long while. So I think that added to it. At one point, Gargano kicks out a whirling powerbomb. Which this is one of those, the first ones, like, really? That could have been a finish, but I don't know if that's Ciampa's finish or his setup one, but it's one of those ones, like, that could have been a finish, but I could see why they had him kick out of it at that point, because, you know, they're really showing that Gargano wants to get his job back, so kicking out of a finish, it serves its purpose. It's not like they're kicking out of finishes like this every match they have. After a little bit of chain wrestling, it wasn't like traditional chain wrestling, that's the best I can use to describe it. Ciampa is locked in Gargano's submissions finish, but he gets out using old school tactics, raking the eyes, because he's a heel. And I just love how the announcers sold this, that they're saying that it's not bad enough that Ciampa took Gargano's job, now he wants to blind him too. So nice little play on the announcers, they're selling it, and Ciampa just gloating in this. Like I said before, he's a heel. After the snake eyes spot, which is where the turnbuckle thing is paid off, Ciampa does a couple super kicks. Gargano does a couple super kicks to Ciampa, and this is where we get Ciampa's kick out spot, which is like, okay, following the turnbuckle and a couple super kicks. Maybe a little. This is where I was starting to think, okay, a little bit too much, especially since he's been powerbombed on the outside, but we'll see where they're going with this. Just a little bit, especially it's like a couple super kicks. It's like you quit close succession, it's like, that should have been a finish, but we'll see, maybe they have something better in mind. I think it might have been better if the super kick missed. But, you know, that's just me being the backyard booker. Another great spot, which this is one of those ones that really, you think, that should have been a finish. And that was that Gargano got super powerbombed. When I'm like that, I'm like, ooh. That is Ciampa paying him back for the earlier powerbomb. And it led to a near fall. And I'm not going to keep repeating myself. This is one of those things I'm like, okay, let's see where they're going with this. At this point, the fans start chanting NXT because they're really into this. And it's after this, Ciampa's probably thinking, what do I got to do to put Gargano away and get him out of my hair forever? Well, he takes off his knee brace. The way he sells it, this is what really led into the finish of the match, and I just love how both performers sold this bit, which is why I tend to forgive the kicking out of the finishers before this, even if it still is a little nitpick, but just the way this last part was set up, it was masterful. Ciampa takes off his knee brace, and at first it looks like he's just checking on his knee, like, oh, like he wants to check and make sure everything's fine, but then he gets an idea, an awful idea. Ciampa gets a wonderful, awful idea. He decides he's going to use the knee brace as a weapon. And it backfires on him, because this is one of those instances where the heel's going to do something dastardly, but then the babyface counters and gives him his come up. Because Gargano counters the knee sucker punch, the brace sucker punch, into his submission move. And just to add insult to injury, he gets a hold of the brace and puts it in Gargano's face and uses that to rank back on him. And that's when Ciampa's like, I'm out of here, I'm out of here, I'm out of here. And with how quickly it happens, that's probably the only little thing. But I could kind of see why, since it's adding some extra leverage, and since he's already been through enough, everything added up to that point to where Ciampa's finally like, all right, I tap. And just the audience reaction was amazing. And then Gargano celebrating with his wife after the match. Perfect way to end the match, and perfect way to cap off the NXT TakeOver event. Other than those couple nitpicks, I thought the match was, done perfectly. It's a match I see some old school people, such as Cornette, not enjoying as much. But if they do, I could kind of see why, but it would surprise me a little bit, other than if they have the same nitpicks I've been given about it. But other than that, it was a good main event match, and overall, this was a great NXT TakeOver event. Like Solid Monster said, there is never been a bad NXT event. There have been ones better than others. And this is another good one. I don't know where I'd rank it among all of them, since I haven't watched all of them back to back yet. But I'd say it'd probably be the top middle, maybe towards the top. And it has me pumped up for the next few months of NXT television, and I can't wait to the next TakeOver event. Now, when it comes to the November one, I'll probably do 2 reviews of it. Probably a review of how it came off in person and how it came off watching it on TV. There'll probably be a follow-up video, but that's months down the line. Anyway, guys, I'm Mar. This has been my opinion. If you guys enjoyed the video, you could always subscribe down below or follow me on the below social media platforms. Mostly active on Instagram and Facebook, but I have been getting more active on Twitter lately. And if you subscribe, you're going to enjoy some of the videos I have coming down the pipeline. A couple of them are going to be videos I've been meaning to do but haven't been able to do because of timing. But hopefully I'll be able to make it up for you now.